Get inspired. Transform your life. Welcome to Best Interest Radio.
All right, so today on the show we have Shannon, and I honestly don't know too much about her, but I'm about to find out. She has quite the amazing, inspiring story of her own multiple transformations that she's been through in her life. So, Shannon, welcome to the show. And
hello, thank you.
So, I know we probably have a lot to talk about today, but maybe you want to start off just from the beginning, like how did everything start? I understand that you had the same cancer that Terry Fox had as a child. Now, were you born with that?
No, I was actually diagnosed when I was 10, and I had the amputation 2 days after my 11th birthday.
Okay, and wow.
And then from there, I underwent 8 months of intravenous chemotherapy.
Wow. So, and then did I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I understand, did you losing your lung, which I understand happened, did that happen shortly after?
Yeah, it happened. I had the 8 months of chemotherapy and I went into remission, and I was in remission for 22 months. And then I had the reoccurrence in my lower lobe of my right lung. And then from there, I had another 6 months of intravenous chemotherapy.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
Okay. So what?
It was life-changing.
I have to ask you, at the age of 11 years old, how did you feel when you were diagnosed with that? What was going through your mind?
So I think like in our little pre-talk, I had told you, like, I've always been a school nerd. And when I was sick, my biggest concern wasn't even the fact, like, I knew I was dying, but my biggest concern was, how was I going to make it through my school year and be able to make it to grade 7? And I thought about it. I voiced my opinion to my parents. My parents thought I was crazy. They're like, Shannon, like, do you understand the seriousness? Like, I know you're young, but like, I'm like, I know I'm going to lose my leg. I know I have cancer. I know that this is supposed to be for like Nana and Grandpa, not for me. But my reality is that I needed to stay strong. And if I was just going to lie there and just dwell on it, like, I remember the day I was told, my mom started bawling because she already knew, but I didn't. And I was in this small room, not much bigger than a powder room, actually. And I had my surgeon, his intern doctor. I had my head nurse of the ward I was on, my parents, my youngest sister. And I was told bluntly that I had cancer. I had 6 months to live, and that chemotherapy and the amputation weren't even a guarantee to save my life, but it was the only hope.
Oh, wow. So what?
And those were basically the exact words too. And it wasn't the fact that, you know, I was obviously a minor, so my parents obviously had to sign my amputation for them to be able to continue to try to save my life. But the doctors had to have my confirmation that I agreed to the amputation. And I just sat there, and I think maybe it was shock at first. And I just said, you know what? Like, I'm 11. I just turned 11. And the doctor's like, yeah. And I'm like, if you take my leg and this works, I could still live to be like 80 or 90, like my grandparents will. And the doctor's like, well, that's what we're trying for. That's what our goal would be. I'm like, well, then you have to take my leg, because like, I got a life to live. My mother, I'll never forget the look in her face when I said that, because I think it was I think she was relieved that I was able to accept it, but I also think that she was like saddened and heartbroken that something so mature. And I think that was the most mature thing I had said to at that point.
So you obviously still had a drive to continue on. You know, you had stuff to do, and you weren't letting.
I had stuff to do, and another part of my reality is that when I got diagnosed with cancer, my grandfather was already battling his own throat cancer, and we were each other's rock. We were the only two in the family with cancer, and anybody in the world can tell you, like, I understand, I empathize. And those are very comforting words, but nobody truly understands what it's like to actually take a breath. It may not have been like, it might not have been any strain on you, but you take that breath and you just pray that it's not going to be your last breath, because everything else in your body feels like it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And, even my worst enemies as an adult, I don't wish that upon anybody. I really don't.
No.
Because the psychological, like, everything from me was like, people could, like, even to this day, people can see, like, that I have an amputation. It's a result that Shannon had cancer. But like, the biggest battle for me was dealing with the mental struggles. When you lose a limb, your brain doesn't compute the fact that it's missing. So that's where phantom pain and phantom sensation comes in. And those things don't go. It's 37 years and I still get phantom pain and phantom sensation.
Oh, that's terrifying and fascinating at the same time,
It is, but at the same time, for me, it's just like a reality, like, oh man, like, I already have a constant reminder. I already get lots of questions, and I've even had, like, some of the worst things be said to me that I don't even understand, that can even come out of somebody's mouth who, has an ounce of compassion for humanity.
Oh, wow.
I was even bullied a lot during school. School, to be quite honest, like, I loved it. Like, I was a book nerd, but the social aspect, it crushed me. It crushed me to a point where between grade 11 and 12, I had tried to commit suicide 3 times and ended up in a psych ward.
Was mainly from the bullying?
That was primarily from the bullying that I was enduring during grade 11, the grade 11 year. Yeah. Like, I'd ride my bike to school, and I might be wearing a pair of shorts because, like, June is hot and you're wearing shorts too. But, it would be like, oh, Shannon the peg legs wearing shorts. There was just always just silly comments.
Yeah, it was awful.
And all through school, like, except for college, my parents, they fought to keep me in phys ed. Like, I had a school fighting to keep me out of phys ed. Meanwhile, I was skiing for the national team. I was, it was really struggling. So if I didn't have school, I seriously think, like, in my grandfather, that I think that things could have been quite different for me.
The school helped ground you and helped you keep focus and to maybe strive for a type of purpose.
And I also think that school was, like, the one constant that I had prior to being an amputee, and I had it after. It was the one thing that nobody could take away from me.
Yeah.
Because as long as I had an active mind, and as long as I had the desire and the motivation to learn, a person can learn and do anything they want. They just have to have the motivation to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going in for lobotomy. I was going in for an amputation. So I stuck to school.
So over the years, did the bullying get better eventually?
The bullying didn't get better until I moved to the East Coast 3 years ago.
Oh, really? Wow. So it continued
even as an adult.
Really?
I was born and raised in Toronto. It's a beautiful city, but it's not a nice city sometimes.
No.
Like, I would go into grocery stores and just people making comments like, "You're really in public looking like that?" And I'm like, well, have you looked in the mirror today, kind of thing? Like, we're doing the same thing. We're buying groceries for our family, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that doesn't even make any sense, really.
No. And I'd have more people, like, just shun me and stuff. And then I come to the East Coast and it was like, wow, like, am I still in Canada? Like, I felt like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, because I was just like, this is so opposite to Ontario. I have cashiers and store stock shelf employees who offered to, like, help me with my groceries to the grocery store. I've never been offered that in Ontario.
Yeah, it's crazy to like see the different demographics between people of different cities like that.
And it's true. Like, and I've even been walking down the street and have had a couple cab drivers offer me free rides just because like they didn't want to see me walking down the street in Ontario. Like there's just that sense of humanity.
Yeah, I wonder
You
if it's
know?
because like big cities, it's big disconnection because it's a little more busy and stuff, and there's more people. So
I understand that, but the bigger the city you are, the more
yeah,
diverse you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to
you
stand out
just
from the rest. That's what makes you an
yeah.
urban.
I know it's like a paradox, like, but at the same time they're so disconnected, so they're disconnected from you, so they're not going to relate to you and have compassion. Whereas here, it's more spaced out, so people are, I don't know, I guess more used to connecting genuinely with people and might have a little bit more compassion.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right.
so I just want to go back to when you were a child. Like, I mean, were you terrified when this was diagnosed and you were going through all this?
You want to know something? Chemotherapy was more terrifying than the actual disease.
Yeah.
To this day, I maintain the same
I've
opinion.
heard that before. I've heard that before from other survivors of different types.
It's 37 years later, and I look back at it, and some people may say that, you need to leave the past in the past and, and move forward. Well, newsflash is that when you experience something like that and you have a physical reminder every single day that one thing happened, keeping the past in the past is no longer a thing that you're able to maintain.
No, I mean, you're exactly what you said there. It's a constant reminder, so you pretty much have no choice but to go back to that every day. So what do you do to be strong when those reminders are in front of you every single day?
Well, I was very, very fortunate that while I was going through my bouts of cancer, my grandfather and my father were such wise men. Like, maybe when I was younger, I didn't think that so much, but I couldn't have been luckier and more blessed than to have the two male role models that every child dreams of having, that I actually had, because I had a grandfather who was battling his own deal with cancer. So, like, he was going through the same terrors, the same thoughts, the same everything that I was going through. And he still managed to come and see me every single day and told me, Shannon, only the strong survive this disease. And the only way for you to be strong is to keep your mind strong. So between him and my parents, within days, I had a science tutor, a math tutor, and an English tutor in Sick Kids Hospital downtown Toronto.
I guess that support.
Like I said, school grounded me. I was in school. I was in the hospital like 90% of my grade 6 year, and I came out of that year still with the highest marks in the class.
That's amazing.
And I don't say that to gloat. I say that because, like, children have security blankets. We have pacifiers. Little kids take around security blankets. School was just like my security blanket. It was the one thing that, like I said, nobody could ever take away from me. So the best I made of it, the stronger I thought my security was.
No, exactly. And so you went on to, like, with your schooling, to go to film school. Is that correct?
Yeah, and before I went to film school, I graduated. I managed a hair salon. I graduated from hairdressing school.
Oh, really? Okay, so film school is down the road.
Yeah, I managed a hair salon for 10 years. And I've also, then I went to film school, and I also have my hospitality, and that's why I was working in a hotel. But at the hotel, I also got to use a lot of my film creativity because a job posting came inside the hotel. So that led me from night manager and night auditor to the hotel writer, where I wrote the internal and external newsletters, and I wrote the blog for the hotel.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I was able to incorporate a lot of the things that I was learning in that job. So the school, but I mean, if I backtracked when I was younger, and I mentioned my grandfather, but my dad, that man made me do some things that at the time I thought were the most absurd, ridiculous things that a person could ask another person to do who had just lost a part of themselves, like physically.
Yeah.
And one of those things was downhill skiing. I have to be honest and say I think it was the first time I ever swore at my father. I had some real choice words. Just use your imagination. I'm sure they came out of my mouth because he wanted me to join a ski team. I didn't even ski with 2 legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I remember my first day. I'm going to Chicopee. I'm going to Shadok Mountain in Hamilton, Ontario. And I'm cursing. I'm swearing. I'm like, how do you think I'm going to do this? What if I fall? Aren't you going to feel bad that I just lost my leg and now I'm down on it? Oh, I was putting on the guilt trip heavy. And then, I'm still stubborn, but I'm still getting myself geared up and I'm still getting ready for that hill, right?
Yeah.
And to the left of me was like a much greater incline in the hill, and I get to see them like just like I'd seen on the Olympics going through the gates, right? And I'm like, what are they doing? Because that seems a lot like more fun because I'm on the baby hill because I'm just learning, right? And they're like, that's the ski team. I'm like, well, why didn't my dad sign me up for that? Because that looks like a lot of fun. And they're like, Shannon, everybody on that hill started on this hill. I'm like, all right, so how long did it take them? Like that same season, they said, like, no, don't expect much. Well, that same season, like 3 weeks later, I'm trying out for that ski team. And my dad, he's like, see, you can do anything. Like, you're just that person. I'm like, Dad, I still think this is nuts. I'm loving it, but I still think you're nuts. Because like I was still foreseeing like I was gonna like die on a hill because I had 1 leg, right?
Yeah, well, you must have had some sort of drive if you kept doing it.
Well, yeah, because my dad is like, and it was the drive that I was winning, and I was getting that competitive edge, right?
That's good.
And I took that competitive edge to pull me through my lung cancer, and but like that first season, I got on the team, and then we go to Collingwood to Blue Mountain and Craigleith for provincials. My coach, my assistant coach, team heads were all telling me, Shannon, you're doing good on this circuit this year. But now we're stepping it up because, like, this is the province. Now you're like on your, like, this is like heading towards the nationals, be on the national team. I'm like, I'm just going to do what I do every other race. I'm just going to ski. And and like that's how I consider it.
Well, hey, if it was working for you, keep doing it.
Right. And that race, I was told that I'm not to expect anything, and I got a silver medal, and my time made it. I qualified right at that race for the national team. I didn't even have to go to the nationals. Yeah, right to the national team, and then I went out to Banff to train and whatnot, and came 4th in Canada. Yeah, that was crazy. It was a crazy time, but that's also where I learned freedom. Yeah, the exhilaration. Have you ever skied?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
cross-country skied for like pretty much the first time this past year.
Downhill skiing is like car racing, and I love both.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline boost that you get, the sense of freedom that you get, I can't even explain it. After everything that was so dark and everything that was so clouded, and I didn't even know if tomorrow even existed. Like the next hour, my next hour wasn't even a guarantee. And to be on that hill and to be as free and to not think of any of that, I think that's the part my dad was getting at. I don't think it had anything to do with me skiing with 1 leg. I think exactly, he just wanted me to do as much normal as I possibly could because he could probably see what I was going through. In puberty, like I was going through puberty, I was going through all kinds of things all at the same time. And it was wild. And then I turned 16 and he's like, I think you need to ride horses. I'm like, hey, Dad, I fell for your first crazy and I succeeded, but I don't know if I could do crazy number 2. And he's like, come on. He's like, you could just, horses are so graceful. They're so human-like. You'll connect and you'll just be, and he also saw my struggles being bullied. And I think he just wanted me to just have that escape again when I was 16 and struggling with bullying really, really bad. uh, there too. I had no desire to ride a horse.
Yeah.
And now at 48, they're like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I used to, and then from that, like I went recreationally and I started showing Western and English. My horse came 5th in North America. And then I went to horse, then that got boring. Then I started going to the racetrack with some of my friends from work. And it was like, why are we working with racehorses? Because this looks a lot more fun. And again, that competitive edge, right? And so off to the race circuit I went. So I used to live in Florida in the winter and to train yearlings and bring them back to Ontario and race them all on the summer circuit.
And
so
did you win all of those too?
I took care of a couple of I took care of $1 million horse and another. If you know horse racing at all, you know anything about Abercrombie Fitch. I took care of that horse for about a week and a half while it's groomed. That was trying because that's one of the most expensive horses on the race circuit. So to be that groom even for a week and a half, it felt like 10 years.
Oh yeah, I bet. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't even been through like half your story, and you've already proven multiple times that whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve.
After I lost my leg, you're in elementary school and you always hear your teachers say, never say you can't do something because you can do it. After I lost my leg, that became so relevant to my life because now I was on a mission. I was on my inner competition, I think.
Yeah.
In the beginning, to prove to people that like just because I lost my leg didn't mean I couldn't do the same things as you. And my parents were battling with me going into the regular school, so they battled with me being able to take phys ed and me being able to just do school. Like, put me in a room in the school. I don't care. Like, I'm not really here for the friends. I'm here because I guess I'm addicted to learning or something because I'm still that way. I'm a filmmaker and I have to say that documentaries are probably my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And, I just feel like, the only limitations we have in life are the limitations we put upon ourselves.
Oh, that's like the main motto that I live by,
And like our minds are capable. They're it's like a sponge and we only use 10% of it to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why not broaden it a bit? There's some room in there,
Yeah.
You can actually expand your knowledge.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I like learning too, is just the constant improvement of knowledge,
Yeah.
And then you can apply that knowledge and just, do more fun things.
I completely agree. And life's too short. We only get one try at it.
Yeah, I know.
So, if you're a baseball player, at least you get 3 strikes. You don't get the same in the game of life.
That's true. Exactly. Just go for something that you want. Just go for it. And I always say that. I went through transformations myself, not quite as profound as yours. I mean, I guess I lost like 115 pounds, and I overcame like different addictions, and I had mental illness I was on medication for, and I had a bunch of different physical diseases and just physical injuries too, like shoulder dislocations, knee injuries, ACL tear, and all that stuff. And I overcame them all, and even just other transformations in my life, such as like financial and career, and even just like becoming a better person and creating more friends around me and stuff. But one thing I totally learned is that, people believe that things are impossible, but I have just proven myself in my own life that so many things that people think aren't possible, I have proved to be possible myself. So,
I think my survival period, because I still question it,
Yeah.
I survived. Like, osteosarcoma bone cancer is no joke.
No.
It really is no joke. And there's a lot of times I ask myself, like, how the hell did I succumb to that? Like, how, like, because according to science, if you go according to even today's technology, like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right?
You're a miracle.
Well, I wouldn't go
now,
that far.
now you can make miracles happen, right?
Maybe somebody made a miracle happen to me. Maybe I had an earth angel who helped me get that far.
Hey, your grandfather sounds like one of those earth angels.
He's definitely one of those people.
Yeah, that's for sure. So what drove your passion to film? And have you done any projects in the past at all? Or
Yeah, I worked with Robin Williams and Christopher Walken just before Robin Williams passed away. We worked on Man of the Year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know how many music video concepts I have written, and I've produced for various artists, whether in Ontario or another rap artist who's from Boston. I did that. I've worked on several documentaries. One of my own that was nominated for. I was nominated for Documentary of the Year. It was based on children with cancer, and a camp that I went to for kids with cancer in Ontario that is through Sick Kids Hospital. It's called Camp Uchigaeus, and when I was sick, there was a team of doctors and nurses who were putting together a pilot project. And I remember while I was in the hospital being, Sick Kids is an amazing place. It's not just a hospital. Like, when I say I was in a meeting room, it was more like an auditorium. And there were several other parents there and whatnot. And what they were doing, trying to, keep that normal in the child's life who's sick, but still be able to get their medicines and have it safe. So they created Camp Uchigaeus, where kids with cancer it wasn't just about going to camp. You could go to camp and get your chemotherapy administered, and you were surrounded by people who didn't stereotype you and place stigmas on you just because you were a child who had no hair and maybe lost a limb, or maybe has, like an intravenous line running from the heart. So they might look a little different, without even really knowing that child would do anything to trade places with you for just 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just for 5 minutes, just for 5 minutes just to get out of your nightmare and to know that, like, ding dong, there is life,
Just like you mentioned at the beginning, you related a lot to your grandfather, and that support system and just knowing that someone's going through the same thing as you is something that we all need regardless of what experience we're going through, but especially when we're going through difficult ones.
Yeah, my grandfather has been gone for almost 16 years.
Yeah.
And what's I say ironic because 3 days before he passed in a hospital in Toronto, he had called me and asked me to go see him. Like, he said, do you have time where you could just drop things and come now? And he wasn't that kind of person. Like, he would never, if he asked you to do something, like, it was always at your convenience. He never put the fact that I need your help and this is when it has to be done. If it's convenient for you, like, then let's do it. Yeah. But he was so adamant. And so I get there and he's like, so have you decided what you're doing? I'm like, Grandpa, I managed in the hair salon, ended up with carpal tunnel, and now I'm just like at a crossroads. I don't know. I have a love for interior design and building, and I also have a love for film. And Grandpa, I love cars too. So, like, mechanics could also be thrown in there. And he's like, girl, you already know what you need to be doing. You're just not doing it. And can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Last summer, living in Tent City was the first time I knew what that something was.
What was that something?
That something was to carry on his legacy of being a humanitarian and fighting for human rights.
And do you think that your time in Tent City is what kind of really showed up to you?
If I tell you, because you keep on going back to my grandfather. My grandfather was instrumental in bringing Black rights into Canada. My grandfather started the Teachers Federation that started here in the East Coast, and also the fisheries and woodworkers unions that also started out here in the East Coast were founded by my grandfather. I spent many years as a little girl in NDP constituency offices, and just like, man, I loved it. Maybe that empowered me before I got sick. I don't know. I remember giving out bumper stickers and signs and be like, vote NDP. Meanwhile, like, I was just out of diapers. Like, I had a while to go before I could even vote. And it was just his inspiration. He was all about the people, you know, and just watching him on that kind of level. And then to be his granddaughter and, you know, sit around family gatherings, and he'd be the first one, you know. I remember when we all, like, and I'm talking physically, built his in-ground pool in a home that him and my grandmother had built. And so there's all of us. It's my uncles, or like all the men. And here's Shannon out there trying to help these guys, and they're digging the hole, and we're getting trees shipped in, and we're making this yard. And the minute those pool chemicals said it was safe for him to go in the water, I'm not even joking when I tell you that construction boots with mud, jeans, everything, he just dove right in. And I was just like, you know, that's living. Yeah. He wanted something. He didn't ask anybody else to do it. He built it himself. and now he's just like reaping in the rewards. And I'm like, it really is that simple.
It sounds like some of his drive to live and his drive to experience things like that rubbed off on you quite a bit.
Absolutely. And being in Tent City and being in the East Coast where he started, like he was born in Victoria, BC, and made his way to Ontario, and then, you know, thought it was a good place to start. And I guess it was, because the Teachers Federations all over the nation, we have Black communities everywhere in our country, and there should have been from the beginning. You know, there's a lot of things. There's unions. A lot of people gripe and groan about unions, but your job security comes from a union. So I don't know. In these times and days, I think some people are probably fortunate that they're in a union job.
Yeah, that's true. I hear mixed reviews about unions, but of course, every experience is subjective anyway.
Right. And and so a lot of the things that he started, things that he succeeded in, I've heard his voice so much since I've been down here. And it's been the most chaotic that my life has ever been. But sometimes I feel like I needed to go through that in order to see what my purpose was.
You know what?
And to actually follow through with it.
Yeah, I feel the same with my own journey, you know, and there's a weird sense that there's a deeper meaning behind things, and I think you can relate where when you go through something and go through transformation, you start to see eventually that, like, okay, I went through that so that I can do this. Like for me, I mean, I feel like I went through my transformation so that I can help other people get out of the well. And I mean, and
it's so true, you know, because like even with my experience in Tent City, like had I not gone through that and gone through the dark issues of it, I wouldn't have my screenplay.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty powerful movie. The screenplay that I'm working on. I'm working on it with the team of, we're just finishing the writing, the development stages of the movie. It's basically it's done film style, but it's intended to educate you like a documentary.
Yeah.
About the real life of being homeless. The real life that, you know, like most people weren't homeless. Like they weren't addicts before they were homeless, or something happened to them to make them homeless. You know what I mean? Like everybody comes to the story, whether it's good or bad. And at the end of the day, it's how you take your life situations and you deal with them. Because you only have two options. You either dwell on them and you don't evolve, or you get a hold of them and try to deal with them and try to understand them so you can at least progress to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I don't like stagnance. It drives me crazy. So like even when I'm like being home with this COVID-19, I feel very stagnant.
It's a great opportunity to work on stuff like screenplays and other.
Right. Well, yeah, it's been a great opportunity to work that. I'm working on a small business as well. So
What's the business?
I'm
if you
working
don't
on
mind me
getting that
asking.
started. Well, I am going to start an edibles business, but not just edibles, like not just edibles, like just because they're cannabis based, but because of becoming homeless and my struggles in the past 3 years, like I suffer from anxiety and from depression, and I drove into this idea with my partner. And so I decided to research recipes about, things that curb different ailments like depression, insomnia, chronic pain and whatnot. And it started off as a way for me to like make myself something so I didn't have to resort to medication. And the more I research, the more I do, and the more people I know, and the more that, especially now that COVID-19's here, and people who didn't know what anxiety was before or thought that it was a joke, probably definitely would agree with anybody who's been suffering for it for years.
Yeah.
We live in pretty anxious times right now. We live in uncertain times. Like everything's changed. It doesn't matter where you go. Things are different than they were a month ago. And
that's very true.
Like basically like how my life was. So I see this COVID-19. Am I scared? I'm probably worried because like I already have lung issues, but I don't know. I learned some pretty good survival skills, I think.
It sounds like like you said before, I think you still have got some stuff to do. So I think you're going to be.
I have a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. This is going to pass.
And me getting on the Greater Moncton Homeless Steering Committee, that's just one of those things that I really have to do.
Your story just blows my mind.
I need to be a voice for the people.
You do, yeah. You should.
There's a reason I feel that. And man, it's weird how sometimes you have to go through something so tragic, or you have to hit rock bottom to like wake yourself up and to jar you to like, holy, like that is what I was supposed to be doing if I hadn't just like messed up for this many. And becoming homeless, like it was my rock bottom, but it was also like it was meant to happen because I was able to understand what I was supposed to do. And when I started being a voice for Tent City and for Tent City to become a legal spot and getting the city involved, the more inspired I was once like I was seeing physical help being done like by the city, various organizations. And then the director of Reconnect started having media come and talk to me about Tent City. And that is when I used to hear my grandfather's voice in the back of my head the most.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just thinking of all those times I was in those constituency offices, listening to him, telling the people that he was going to fight for whatever your human right is. If it's in that act, I'm fighting with you for it. And I have the same drive. I've been with partners who've even been incarcerated, and you see the life on that side. Man, like human rights is a big thing. People like right now when people have a lot of time to think and they're not doing very much.
Yeah.
People should actually start to actually put their, put perspectives differently and priorities. I'm pretty sure everybody's already thinking like, wow, like that really wasn't a priority.
Yeah.
Like, why did I spend so much time focused on it?
Exactly. Yeah. Starting to see the true value of things, what really matters.
It's the little things that matter.
Yeah.
Like when I started seeing around the nation, around the country, around the globe, and one of the first things that I noticed was that there was no NHL, right?
Yeah.
And then the Olympics were canceled, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I get those are things that we've grown to have in our life. But at the end of the day, when it comes to your personal day-to-day, whether that hockey player is on that ice scoring a goal, or whether anybody else is doing it, or even me making a film or whatever, at the end of the day, it's the little things in life that matter, because without those little things, you'll never have the bigger things.
That's true.
And I've always told, like, even my kids growing up, we may not have a lot of money. We may struggle, but you're probably one of the wealthiest kids on the block because you've got a mom who just wants to be your mom.
Exactly.
And and I guess that's just that, right?
Yeah. Just
And
hit the nail on the head again.
right. And it's just, like, I always raise my kids like I wanted them to be people. I wanted them to be independent. And I really wanted them to be confident, because a lot of those things, my confidence, my self-esteem, and all those kinds of things, when I raised them, I feared it for them. And not because, that they were sick or anything. I have, both of them are college graduates, have their own families. Like they're doing life. And, but it was the fact of them being teased because their mom was an amputee, and I know what I went through being the amputee. My daughter didn't go through it so much, but my son had a few battles on the school ground about having a mom with one leg or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I feared for him. I was like, oh, no, this isn't happening. I'm stopping this before this ever starts. And so, I tried really hard to the things that I stick to this day. If I'm talking to you about it, I probably still in the recovery process of it. Actually, that part I don't think will ever go away. Me dealing with my cancer thing, because I have a constant daily reminder. It's how I live my everyday that's going to get me through it. And that's exactly how I raise my kids. Like, you'll be handed a million cards. You'll be handed a million hands of cards in your lifetime. But how you play those cards is what's going to give you the next direction on your path of life.
The interesting thing about that is that same daily reminder that you have that is terrible, at the same time, there exists the reminder that same competitive drive that you have, the same competitive drive that you've used to overcome and accomplish all these different things in your life, and you're still continuing to use. So without that tragedy, you might not have that competitive drive that you have now. Because let me tell you,
what? I completely agree with you. Everybody I know tells me, like, you're one of the strongest people I know. You're one of the strongest people I know. And I'm like, if any of those cards in my hand when I was going through cancer would have dropped out of my hand, or I would have not played any of those cards, right? I wouldn't probably be standing here being the same person. I would have been a totally different person. I was still athletic prior to being an amputee, so I had some of that competitive edge. But after losing my leg and realizing, and especially in the early 80s, when, like, the reason my parents battled so much with the school board is because at that time, Ontario still had schools that were functioning for individuals who were disabled. And I don't know, segregation's already been out of our constitution for a while. And so I said to my parents, I was like, I'm not going there. I'm going to the same school that I went to before I got sick.
Yeah.
There's no reason. There's no reason for it. Just because I lost my leg, big deal. Like, I still have my brain. I just proved that I'm already a decent student academically, because I just passed my grade 6 year, and I'm, trying to battle my life. So, I think that whole cancer experience, it really, really, really truthfully, like, the competitive edge. Like, there's days I even find that I didn't compete with myself. Like,
you know what? I just want to sort of interrupt for a second and just say that you have been through severe challenges, from your cancer to the bullying and the addiction, living in Tent City, and everything that in between and beyond.
Right.
But like you said, that has given you the drive to help humanity and be a humanitarian, which is what Tent City helped you see. Right. Now, it sounds to me like you have an even bigger challenge to tackle than all the other challenges before you combined. Because now it sounds like your challenge is to help make a difference in society and humanity by being a humanitarian and carry on that torch that your grandfather
Absolutely. I think you got it, like, dead on.
Yeah.
And this COVID-19 thing, like, I understand that the health perspective of it is what's scaring people. But I see the bigger picture when we come out of this.
Yeah.
You know, I really, really truthfully hope that I'm right when I say that we're going to see a lot of nicer people on the street. We're going to see people who aren't going to take life for granted because you've basically been on house arrest for a while. And, you know, it gives you a different light.
I totally agree. I think a lot of people are on the same page with that one.
And when you see, and when I saw the pyramid tier of everything that we thought that was a priority, and those were the first things hit with this COVID-19, I was like, this is about change. And I got so excited. And I have a friend who advocates with me, and she comes over, she's like, Shannon, this COVID-19 thing. And I'm like, but think of it from a positive perspective. And she's like, positive? You know, you got to understand, she's standing like her 2 meters, she's got gloves on, and this is like my best friend, right? And I'm like, but come on, girl, you got to see the bigger picture. Our voices are going to be heard now. Like, people are going to listen to those who are trying to help others, because you've been stuck at home trying to help yourself for a while. And I know for myself, like, I love life, but there's some days, you know, I just don't want to be trapped in my own head. So that's where you have the freedom living in Canada of being able to, you know, go out your door and just go for an adventure to just to live. And I don't know, I truthfully hope that I see a bigger picture with this COVID-19 thing. I see that we're not going to have a perfect world. We'll never have a perfect world. But I do believe it'll be a lot less chaotic. I just think it'll be a lot less chaotic because the things that we once thought that were priorities, which are all those A-list things that North America puts in the media that they tell us that we need. Yeah. You know, all those things aren't happening right now. So people are just living there, right? Mm-hmm. They've got and I dig it. Right? I'm waiting for the opposite side already.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, because I just see, like, you know, my advocacy could just actually be a voice right now. Because people are at home to listen.
Yeah. That's exactly why that's why I'm doing this right now.
Right? I'm surprised. I'm so surprised that the internet hasn't crashed with so many people globally being home and being, like, stuck on the internet.
The funny thing is,
I better not jinx it.
I think all the big social media companies prepared for their servers for this.
Well, when I started seeing A-listings going first, I kind of thought, like, you know, like, people knew about this long before it hit.
Yeah, exactly, when it originated.
But, you know, there's like every other. It's just like every other battle in life. Life happens, and this is to everybody. You know, like, we're all, like, right now, we all have a common denominator, and that's COVID-19. And, you know, it's a tragedy when you sit there and you have the fear of this pandemic, but you got to remain positive, because if you don't, you're just going to fall into it.
Well, that's right.
And when you dwell and when you're depressed, we all know that when we're depressed, we start feeling our stomachs start hurting, you know, our bowels aren't running right, we get headaches. You know, these are all common things when we're stressed out. Mm-hmm. And now that you know, it's how you play those cards. It's just how you play those cards, and everything that has a negative, there's, in my opinion, there's always got to be a positive in there somewhere. So you may not help everybody, but if you can reach out to even a handful of people, well, then those handful of people might just reach out to a couple more people, and those couple more people, right? And before you know it, we'll have change, positive change.
Exactly.
Change where people, and it's with me, it's stigmas and stereotypes. Like, the media has done a fine job of making, you know, really emphasizing stigmas and stereotypes in today's society. Mm-hmm. And it's a sad thing, because, you know, we've evolved to the point where disabled are accepted. The country is 90% accessible. We've succumbed to all kinds of other things. And so this is just one of those other things that we'll get through.
Exactly. And I mean, just as we went through our own transformations individually, I mean, this is humanity's collective tragedy that we're going to overcome. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to make us stronger, just like our own tragedies do.
Right.
So,
yeah,
which to me excites me. I started to get excited about challenges. I'm like, oh yes, this really sucks. I'm excited because I know it's going to be, I'm going to be a lot stronger than I was before now.
Right. I know. And I don't know. I've been like, I clean my house, like my hands are sanitized. My partner went through a phase. We even had a sanitizing station like right at our front door. And then I'm like, okay. And then when they made it have less socializing, I thought, okay, now we can get rid of this station. But anyways, we would never be where we are today if we didn't have transformation to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and it's one of the things that people struggle with the most.
That's right.
Like going through my transition, going from cancer and then the transition from homelessness to being in my own home. That was overwhelming for a bit. My first night, it was raining. It was raining so hard. And when I went to bed, I put a flashlight on my end table. I don't even know why I did that. I could turn on my switch, right? Just flick it and my light would be on. And then I heard it rain. As soon as I heard the rain, I grabbed my flashlight, turned it on because I thought I needed to go fix my tarps.
Oh, wow. The subconscious patterns were still there, right? You have to reprogram.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, Shannon, the rain's not coming in your house anytime soon.
Wow.
And my partner was in here. My partner was currently incarcerated. And so it was like, wow, okay. I didn't even have him to rely on and to get through that struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a while. It was a while. There was a lot of things that I had troubles. Not I couldn't do them. I was so overwhelmed that I had them again.
Mm-hmm.
And while I spent most of my life telling my kids and telling myself, you can't take life for granted. You can't take people for granted. You can't for granted. And it was the one thing I did. I took some things for granted, but I believe that I would not have. I was meant to be intensity. I was meant to, but I don't think there's days when I think I don't even know how I did it.
Can you do
now that I've gone through that transformation of I've been in my own place for 7 months now, going on 8, and while I absolutely I love having my place and it's home, I have a front door and I have a back door. I don't know how many times a day I can sit on my couch and I'm still looking out my front door and I'm still looking out my back door. And it's from being on the street, from having to take care of myself, not realizing, chick, you are sitting on your couch and your doors are locked.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the mind struggle. And it's just keeping a positive mind. I don't believe in dwelling. I just
no, yeah.
My parents and those who were close to me didn't allow me to dwell when I was younger, when I very well could have. And so now I really battle with that bad, when there's dwellers or there's people complaining about certain things, and it's just let me tell you a story because you want to know something. Yeah, yes. Your 2 feet might hurt right now, but I don't complain. But I use crutches right now because my prosthetic isn't quite finished. But I just walked from Albert Street to Mountain Road on crutches.
Wow.
As I'm not trying to make myself look like a superhero right now, but everybody has their daily struggle. And it's how you deal with your daily struggle. You would have never known that I was sore and really didn't want to walk today because I don't talk about it, because who's going to listen anyways? But nobody really wants to hear that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
and that's where I feel like that it's not to make myself look better than everybody else. It's just to see that we are all different in some way, but at the end of the day, we're all humans. And my job is humans. So, yeah, that just sums it up. My job is humans. My job isn't
I
necessarily, conditions and whatnot. If you're a human and you need something and I can help you, I'm going to help you. And if I got to put myself in the middle of things, like I've gotten myself into some controversial conversations since I've been in Moncton. So, I've done a few documentaries, like the one on the Harvest House and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I did Tent City. I've become quite a voice.
I just want to say it's pretty interesting that you make documentaries yourself and you're a filmmaker, and then you happen to be in Tent City during a time when they made the documentary.
Right? And you know what's even more funny about that is that when I teamed up, one of the writers is a professor of mine from film school, and he said to me, he's like, "Girl, I have never seen anybody with such a marketing scheme." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, we're about to write this film for you, right? And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "And you're already doing all the publicity." He's like, "You're already out there. Like, you're in documentaries. You're at film festival Q&As. You're at CBC doing early morning broadcasts. You're sitting on your couch with the newspaper or any other news outlet." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I go, "It's what I do." I go, how else do you be a voice? I can burn my partner's ears off and talk about it all day long, but unless I'm going to go out there and actually do what I'm saying, what good is it talking about it? Like, the only way to get change is to get physical. So
exactly.
let's get it done.
Action, make it happen. Yeah.
Nike has the best slogan: "Just do it."
They do. Yeah.
I agree.
Well, it's a good one.
Yeah.
So you overcame addiction. How did you leave Tent City? Like, how did you get out of that? Like, what?
Okay, so last summer, my partner and I were hitting rock bottom. Like, we were hitting rock bottom in our relationship. We were both using, and he had come to me and told me, like, "Shannon, like, I'm done with this. Like, we've got to make a plan. We've got to get out of here." And just looking at his face that day, wow, I still have that drove me to get a place you don't even understand. You talk about me being competitive. I never felt like as if I was in the middle of a challenge, because here I am living in Tent City and I want a place now. And some workers from the Selvis Clinic and John Howard had we were in the middle of this conversation, and they had come into Tent City, and I could hear them from our tent plot. And I'm like, "Hun, I'll be right back." And I felt rude too, because I wasn't really telling them why I was leaving. I called them both over and I said, "My name's already on the housing list, and I have already taken this too far. I have got all the stories I need for my film, plus some. I need to get my partner home. I need to get my partner into a house. I need my partner to feel like he's him again." And we got word that we had a place, and then he got arrested. So I spent the last 31 days in Tent City by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, wow was how I sum it up too.
Yeah.
Because the beautiful Tent City that our mutual friend Colleen was able to create in that marvelous documentary she did, life, how she portrayed it in that documentary, is exactly how Tent City was that day and was shortly after that day. But then once the population grew and certain individuals came and decided to turn it into, this is what I do, so this is how Tent City is going to be. It wasn't so cool anymore, because now it wasn't about, going out there, starting a fire. Anybody want a coffee this morning? Anybody need to smoke? It's something like that. It was survival, like tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, wow. Like, it became a true nightmare, and especially being there alone. Oh man, I don't wish that upon any female either.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination. So once I went to the workers and told them I needed a place, my partner got arrested, and just before he got arrested, I had already made the decision that I was already hitting rock bottom. My kids, my grandkids, my parents, everybody's in Ontario. They think that I'm okay. I was far from okay. Far from okay.
Yeah.
I was mentally struggling. It was if my partner wasn't with me for through this journey in the past 3 years, I don't even know if I would have survived it. Because he, just like my grandfather and just like my father, he can be that rock.
Yeah.
And then when it wasn't there, again, like my grandfather passing away and me coming homeless, I realized what I needed to do with my life. It was the same reality. All those street skills, all those, little messages, all those little warnings that, when we ended up on the street, and he's street smart. And so I if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have survived it. That's for sure. It was.
I'm happy that you had that support.
So am I.
To get through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
even with COVID-19 now, like, sure, it's a struggle, like everybody's stressed out, like who wants to be cooped up all the time? Mm-hmm. Sure, there's homebodies, but even being a homebody, you have the option. If you wanted to go to the door, you have that option. Like you wanted to go to the mall, you wanted to go to the park, whatever, you had that option. Today you don't.
Yeah.
And so I understand that, everybody's stressed out. But at the end of the day, those who love you and those who are sticking by you, keep them close today. Keep them close to you, because not everybody's blessed with such a support system.
I second that one. So I want to hear your long-term goals, or maybe even short-term, because it seems like you have these different visions. Maybe somebody.
Well, I have a vision because some of them fall into each other. Like my screenplay, I have a TV series that I'll keep almost kind of quiet, but the TV series can coincide with my edibles business.
Yeah.
And that in itself could be like, I don't know, the next great marketing scheme. So that's one project I have under my belt that I'm really actively working on. And I'm not just about having a business so I can line my pockets. My intention is to support my advocacy and to, I don't know, maybe create a foundation of my own where I can help others. Like the help was there for me. And one of those things would be affordable housing. Mm-hmm. I would be the one, I would be the property builder that would build that brand new condo and have geared to income everywhere. Just because that's what we need.
Yeah, we totally do.
And, and just because you're low income and just because you're homeless at the time and your situation might be wrong, it does not mean that you're trash. It doesn't mean that you're a waste of society. It doesn't mean that you're lazy or even that you're an addict.
No, not at all.
Because I've met people on the street who don't use anything. And their situation is what made them homeless. Losing a job. Most Canadians live paycheck to paycheck. So it's not surprising that our numbers are high. in homelessness. So, everybody comes with a story, and until you know that story, I don't think we're in a position to be placing stigmas and stereotypes.
100%. I agree.
Because I don't know. I've always been told that, no one's perfect.
No.
Well, then why do we have stigmas and stereotypes? Because people are looking for perfection.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the media has brainwashed us to think that that's what we need.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're looking at a new car, if you're looking to buy a new house, like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. North American media has made it possible for you, to dream the dream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not all, some dreams are just that. Some dreams are actually dreams. And other things are realistic and can be attainable, and those things will be so much more rewarding in the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So follow what the things that matter, what truly makes you happy. Follow your passion. That's the most fulfilling thing.
And go for it. You may not, come out as like number one, but the fact that you just tried, you could be number one within yourself, to your confidence and your self-esteem. Those things shine bright.
Exactly. Each day and each thing that we do, it's just more experience points.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
So I totally see all your visions coming to fruition. This is just the beginning of anything that you've dreamed of, I think, because I just see your drive. I feel and hear and see your passion, and just looking at your past and how you've already overcome so many different challenges, there's no doubt that you're going to be able to tackle this one. And you have a really good way of expressing yourself and connecting with your stories and the emotions behind them. And you're really going to speak to a lot of people. I mean, you already have, and you are now, and you are going to in the future. So I'm
on Facebook, whether I think you have me on Facebook now, but to anybody who's listening too, if you happen to look for me on Facebook, Shannon Camilleri or Pink Mist Productions, I have a series on Facebook that I started, and it was for me to curb my emotions from living a life of an addict to a life of sobriety. And it's a food porn series. I love to cook. My partner and I love to cook together. We have so much fun with cooking.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, it's just one of those common things. You turn on the music and we just like groove with it, right?
Yeah.
It's so much fun. Anybody who doesn't cook with their partner, they should give it a try. You got lots of time right now.
100%. I love cooking with my partner too.
But I didn't have that either. And I was battling the struggle of him not being here alone and dealing with what I dealt with intensity, the transformation of having my own place. Those early months of my sobriety, you have no idea how many hours every day that I didn't want to be sober. And, knowing that my partner was forced to be sober, the least I could do for him was to be sober when he got home.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that.
I just have to ask before we continue, like, how do you manage to stay sober? I mean, you said you did it without methadone. Like, that's just another amazing feat that you demonstrated.
And I was using crystal methamphetamine, and that stuff's consuming.
Yeah.
Meth hates people, and it hates relationships. And my relationship meant something to me.
Mm-hmm.
My partner is not just my partner. He's been my best friend for 23 years.
Yeah.
And we've battled. We've had our battle. And I stay sober because I those things in my life matter to me, and I won't have them if I'm not sober. I won't have my business if I'm not sober. I won't have my kids and my grandkids and my parents if I'm not sober. I won't have my partner if I'm not sober. And if I don't have my partner, then I don't have my best friend, and I don't have my rock, and I don't have this. Like, my life isn't perfect, but my life is more stable than it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, I honestly, I look at the bad, and I think that most days that's what I use as my motivation to be positive. Because I get asked that question so many times, and it's so hard for me to answer it most times, because it's like, I don't know one thing that gives me the drive. Like, my best friend, who's also an advocate, she tells me all the time that I'm a diamond in the rough. And I finally asked her what she meant by that, and she said, "You are the only person I know." And she lived in Red Deer, so she knows what life's about too. And she goes, "I've never seen somebody get sober right in the middle of the situation that they were in when they were using."
Yeah.
Because I was still in Tent City.
That's profound.
My relationship with my partner, my relationship with my children, like, it was rock bottom. Like, I really felt like as if I was sinking into a hole that I wasn't going to be able to get my out of. It was the first time that I felt like I couldn't use my competitive edge.
Yeah.
I had no way to do it. It was me against what the rest of society was, or was it me against me? Because I was the addict. I needed to get myself out.
So from my perspective, it sounds like what keeps you, or what got you sober and what keeps you sober, is counting your blessings and all that you have in your life, and the things that you want to sustain, and your drive to sustain them, and your drive to also just make these new things happen, things that are beyond yourself, such as being a humanitarian and making these documentaries. So, and it's so funny because this philosophy is so simple. Count your blessings, be grateful for what you have, sustain them, and then have something in mind that you want to achieve, even if it's just sustaining what you already have, and just do it. And you're a prime example of just doing that. Sounds simple. Yeah. It's just the only difference between other people and you is that you're the one that actually does it.
When I speak of it too, like, a lot of people say, like, you make it sound so easy. It's the farthest thing from being easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and I've always been told that, you'll never get out what you put in unless you put in. So if you don't put in the hard work, whether it's on yourself, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationship, regardless of what it is, if you don't put in the work, don't expect the results that you're thinking of in your head, because you're never going to achieve it. It all starts within. You can't love somebody else unless you love yourself. You can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I live by that. Like, I also believe in treating people the way you want to be treated, and especially when it comes to stereotypes and stigmas. Like, this all started with me when I lost my leg, and me being the amputee. Like, I just didn't see that, like, that I had a bigger vision. Like, me being an amputee was just part of this journey into my road of being an advocate and being about human rights. Because there's so many aspects of my life where I could be like, where everything just falls into place. And sometimes when you're living your own life, you don't see the life you should be living. Right? Because you're so consumed with that current path.
Mm-hmm.
And that current path becomes a comfort zone. And the second it becomes a comfort zone, that's when you got to have a little conversation with yourself.
Exactly.
That's when you got to say to yourself, like, is this really what I want? Is this when I die, is this how I want people to remember me? It doesn't mean you got to be, you don't got to be famous, but I would hope that most of us want to go out of this world with people having some nice things to say about us.
Hey, what's funny about that is the ancient Greek philosophy, Stoicism, they practiced imagining your death and what people would say at your funeral and how you'd be remembered.
Yeah.
Just a fun fact. So
Yeah.
you probably do that naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I die, there better be, I don't know, maybe some skis and an editing suite there or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
And if I
Yeah.
ever get a medal for humanitarian, like that should be right there with me.
You know, I want to see you make a big impact. So I think it'll come. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I guess, before we continue, is go back to the beginning where you mentioned how nobody truly knows what you've been through until they've been there,
Yeah.
and that's I can relate to that. I understand that completely, and I have a story which maybe I'll share on like a podcast of its own, but I'll just quickly mention that one point in my life I got rid of everything I owned, and I wanted to feel what it was like to have absolutely nothing so that I could understand people more and to have more of a connection to
Mm-hmm.
that part of life for some people. And so anyways, I got rid of most of my stuff. I almost honestly gave away my car, but it's pretty much the only thing I kept. And yeah, I guess long story short, I went and I gave a bunch of stuff in a book bag to a homeless man, and he thought I was going to leave, and I was like, no, like I just want to spend the night with you. I want to know what it's like to be homeless. And yeah, I spent the night with him, and it was really profound, let me tell you, and it really gave me like a taste of what it was like through his stories and just being walking around with him and being with him.
And you see, and that's the problem with today's society.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody would take that step that you did.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why the stigmas and stereotypes, I don't know when they're going to leave homelessness. I truthfully don't. Because, I don't know, it really, really bothers me, because coming from this 5-star lifestyle and then being homeless and me seeing it with my own eyes, like now I'm being treated that way too, right? I saw it before. And I was just like, wow, people are really like that. Humans are really like that.
I remember him looking around, like trying to find a safe place to sleep so that he didn't get like mugged while he was sleeping.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. I stayed till like 5 a.m, and around there I had to leave. I would have spent the night with them, but literally like I had to leave because I was scared. I wasn't scared for my life, but because I honestly don't have fear, but I was being very careful because somebody who was obviously under the influence was showing us his knife. So yeah, I had to get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
you don't realize how much of a commodity a Bic lighter is until you're homeless.
Yeah, I bet.
Because you protect that lighter like it's nothing else.
Yeah, really. So if there's one thing that you want to leave people with today, is there anything else you want to say, like that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I just want people to know, like, I'm here because I have a story. I'm here because I'm willing to be a voice and tell my story. But I'm not the only one that has a story. I'm not the only one that has a voice. And I would just hope that, at the end of the day, that job, that car in your driveway, or that beautiful home that you go home to, those are all beautiful things. They're all beautiful, tangible things. But sometimes in life, the things that we can't touch are the things that we should hold closer and keep close to us, because those small things are what's going to leave you with a legacy of being a wealthy individual.
Those are very wise words, and that's the true meaning of life right there.
I don't measure wealth by how many dollars a person has. I measure wealth by how many good things a person can do. It doesn't have to be great things. Like, it doesn't mean you have to, win a Nobel Peace Prize to be considered a great person.
No.
Just random acts of kindness, holding a door open for somebody, saying please and thank you.
Exactly. Being
saying
authentic.
sorry, saying sorry when you're wrong and meaning it. You know,
Uh-huh.
those things, those are the things we can't touch those things, but we can feel those things the most.
Yeah. They're the things that make us feel the best, and they're also the things that make us feel the worst on the opposite spectrum of them when we don't do those
Most
things.
definitely.
Right? Yeah.
Most definitely.
So they're most important on both sides. You know, they play the biggest impact with the small things. So, well, I will link your. I don't know if it's Facebook or YouTube links on the show notes for everybody.
I have YouTube and Facebook.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you do.
All right.
Those got to fill up.
All right.
But yeah, thank you so much for talking to me. I mean, you're amazing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was, everybody says I have a story. I've had so many people before I left and came to the East Coast. I used to have people saying, like, when are you going to write that book? I'm like, what book? I'm like, I'm not writing no book.
You got a documentary.
They're like, Shannon, but you have a story. But, but even me writing this screenplay is nothing compared to my film biography that I have in my head. So anybody who, like, wants to see a biography that's more Marvel style, well, I'll be writing that I'm writing that biography.
That sounds awesome. I want to see it for sure.
Right?
You got me intrigued. Like your professor said, you've got quite the marketing scheme. Like, I already want to buy everything that you talked about.
That's awesome. Yeah. When it comes to my creativity and even my business, like, I know it's hard work to get a business up and going and whatnot. And it's just like, I'm already thinking of the marketing. Like, I'm already, like, in my head, like, we're already there type of thing. but we'll see, right?
Hey, that's the mindset of success. Keep that.
It is.
Because that'll drive your actions to bring that to fruition,
Yeah, if this dream doesn't succeed, but we'll just dream on another one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's life.
Yeah. So, I really connected with your story. I'm sure whoever's listening is definitely connecting with it too. And thank you so much again for coming on. Like, you're an amazing person, so inspiring, very touching, empowering. Like, it makes me want to do more in my own life.
Thank you.
And I'm sure anybody who's listening can agree with that. And you're a beautiful soul. Keep up your good work. And,
thank you.
It was nice talking to you. And
awesome talking to you anytime.